Hey guys, are y'all there? How are you doing? Ron White here, two-time USA memory champion. I want to thank you for watching my channel, and I am just here to answer some of the memory questions that I get, some memory training questions. I see Joan Shakespeare right here has a memory question, and her question is, I don't have short-term memory. What can I do to remember this? I'm now in college and I have very poor when it comes to quizzes and exams. So what can you do to improve the question I'm answering right now is coming from Joan. This is Ron White. I'm a memory expert. I'm going to give some memory tips on this. So if you have any questions, just type your questions here. Type any questions here, any questions in the box. The question that Joan has asked is her short-term memory. So first of all, let's understand what short-term memory is. In our brain, we will hold information in what is called our working memory or our short-term memory for maybe under a minute. And if our brain determines that it is important, it will transfer it to our long-term memory. So the question is how can we? I don't have short-term memory. I think what you mean is your short-term memory isn't that long. So to remember anything, if you want to put it in your long-term memory, you need to make it very emotional or full of a lot of pictures. Here's an example. Have you ever been in a car accident? If you've ever been in a car accident and then 10 years later, you can probably remember where you were, the time of day, all the details of that accident. Is it true that working memory can be improved? Junk tube, I'll get to that question in 1 second. If you've ever been in a car accident, you can remember what happened 10 years later. Why? The action and the emotion cemented that into your long-term memory. So if you want to improve your long-term memory, whatever it is that you want to recall, make it full of action and make it full of emotion. For example, I met a woman today and her name was April. If I just thought to myself, okay, April, good, I'll try to remember that. There's no action, there's no emotion. So the odds of me remembering that long-term aren't very good. But if I turn her name into a picture, A pill for April, and I imagine she's taken like 100 pills and her stomach is swelling up from taking pills, and then she explodes. She took so many pills. That will go into my long-term memory because they're so full of action and emotion. Is it true that working memory can't be improved? No. Well, I don't think that's true, Junk tube, because think about it. If you've ever drank alcohol, or if you haven't got much sleep, or if you're on medication, your working memory is going to decline. So I think if you can take care of your body through good nutrition and exercise, drinking plenty of water and staying healthy, I think your working memory can be improved. And I know, and if you want to think about it this way, and this kind of goes back to the question earlier, Joan asked, she doesn't have a short-term memory. What can she do to remember college quizzes and exams? Here, I'm going to answer Junk Tube's question about working memory and the question about college exams. I'm a big fan of the Mind Palace, the Memory Palace or the Mind Palace. And we all know the Mind Palace. If you don't know what the Mind Palace is, it's a way of using pieces of furniture to memorize whatever you want to recall. For example, I number pieces of furniture in my house. See that shelf over there? That could be number 1. That circle right there could be number 2. That TV right there could be number 3. This stand could be number 4. Number pieces of furniture or locations in your house, and then whatever you want to remember, you attach to these locations. So let's say you're studying for a chemistry test and you want to memorize the periodic table of elements. The first element is hydrogen. So you imagine hydrogen as a picture, somebody waving high, and they're standing over there on those shelves, somebody waving high. The next element is helium. So you imagine a helium balloon and you attach it to that circle and it's lifting up. This is how you could memorize the periodic table of elements or memorize anything you're studying for an exam. Make a map of your house, make a map of your classroom, take whatever you want to memorize and visualize it on there. Hey, Jake from the UK, Jack Errol, I'm sorry. Nice to see you live. Hey, from Guam. Let's see. Any ideas on how to improve spatial memory into orientation? Let me come back to that. Spartacus Maximus, I'm currently having computer science and difficulty remembering mathematical concepts such as mathematical steps in an algorithm. Do you have any suggestions? How would I want to memorize steps in a mathematical algorithm? It's the same way. I would use the mind palace. If I wanted to, for example, there are the steps to completing the square of a quadratic equation. There's in math, there's something called completing the square of a quadratic equation. And you got to do something to this side of the equation, and then you got to do it to that. And there's 5 or 6 steps. I would just break those steps down into pictures and attach them to pieces of furniture. Now, I do want to say, okay, so Junk Tube says, I want to start playing around with the memory palace technique, but for some reason I worry about overcrowding and my palace getting messy. Should I worry about that? I don't think so. Now, in other words, you can still use the same pieces of furniture over and over again, as long as the subject matter is different. And here's what I mean. Let's say you use your mind palace to memorize the periodic table of elements today. And then tomorrow you want to remember the presidents of the United States. Well, you can still use that same mind palace. You're not going to confuse the material. Why? Because the two subjects are so different. However, let's say you wanted to memorize a deck of cards right now, and then in an hour you wanted to memorize a deck of cards again. Well, that is so similar, I think you're going to confuse the information. So in that situation, I would recommend you use a different mind palace. So here's your rule of thumb. As long as the subject matters are different, you can use the same mind palace over and over again and not confuse the information. But let me ask you this question. Let's say you memorized a poem and you used your mind palace to memorize that poem. Well, you read through the poem, you memorize it with your mind palace, and then you say it today, say it tomorrow, you say it in 6 weeks. And every time you say it, you're using your mind palace. Well, guess what? One day you're going to say that poem and you're not thinking about your mind palace anymore because you just know it. You've said it so many times. And what this illustrates is that your mind palace is great to learn information. You say it today, you review it tomorrow, you review it in a week, you review it in a month. Then eventually you're going to get to a point where you just know the information. So you don't have to continually go back and think about your mind palace to remember that information. This is important. Why? Because that means your mind palaces aren't going to get overcrowded, because they are just there to temporarily hold the information until it becomes knowledge. And I say that'll happen unless you're memorizing something like 5,000 words in order. Then it's probably never going to go into your natural memory. You're probably always going to have to use your mind palace to remember the data. But I do not think your mind palace will get overcrowded, and do not worry about that. If you find that it does, just build a different mind palace. Use your house, use your friend's house, use your cousin's house, use your favorite restaurant, use your school, use your office, use a sports stadium. There is so many options on what you can use as a mind palace. There is no reason that you should ever run out of spaces. Roland asks, how can it be possible to memorize a whole book? Is it possible? Well, I would answer that question by saying, do you want to memorize it word for word, or you just want to memorize the main ideas? Unless it is a religious book or a poem or something like that, it's really not necessary to memorize it word for word. If it's a poem or a quote or a religious text, sometimes word for word is important. I don't recommend memorizing word for word unless it's in under that category. Instead, I would, if you're studying for a test or you just want to become knowledgeable on something, I wouldn't recommend you memorize it word for word. Instead, what I would recommend you do is read the book. And as you're reading the book, read with a pen or a highlighter and underline or highlight the information that you think is important as you're reading it. Don't try to memorize it as you're reading it. Just try to highlight or underline it. And then when you get done with the chapter or you get done with the book, go back to all the highlighted or underlined information and then memorize that using your mind palace or your memory palace. And again, the mind palace is where you number pieces of furniture in a house and attach the data to it. So yes, I think it is possible to memorize a whole book. I would not recommend you do it word for word unless it's a poem or religious text. And if it is in that case, yes, it's possible, but it's going to take a long, long, long time. I love you, man. Thank you very much. How would you revise if I have a test the next day? If you have a text test the next day, whatever you want to memorize, study it today and make sure you get a good night's sleep. Not only make sure you get a good night's sleep the day before a test. Here's something interesting. Scientists will tell us that if you learn something today and you sleep good tonight, when you wake up tomorrow, you're going to remember it better. So what that means is if you learn something today and you get a good night's sleep tonight, when you wake up, you'll remember it better. If you learn something today and you don't get a good night's sleep tonight, you're not going to remember it that well tomorrow. Why? When we sleep, our brains go through REM sleep, and during that, it replays what we learned during the day. So if you get a good night's sleep, your brain will replay what you learned during the day. If you don't get a good night's sleep, your brain doesn't get that opportunity to remind yourself of what you learned during the day. So it's important to get a good night's sleep the day after you learn something. It's stronger the next day. You're amazing. Thank you very much. How does one, here's Juju Bear ask, how does one memorize more abstract concepts like the law? Well, and Sanjay asked about, tell me some memory exercises. So let me answer those two questions. Number one, how do you memorize abstract concepts like the law? To remember anything, it has to be a picture. Okay, you have to be able to see it. Your mind remembers what it sees. That's why, look at this, a skull, a Neanderthal skull. If I ask you in a week, what did I hold up in that video? You're going to say, oh, you held up a skull. But if I just said the word skull, and in a week I asked you what the word is, the odds of you remembering it are going to be better if you saw the skull versus me just saying the words. Whatever you want to remember, you need to be able to see it as a picture. So if you want to memorize abstract concepts like the law, the first thing you're going to need to do is turn it into an image, something you can see. There's a law case, Plessy versus Ferguson. I don't, so that was the court case, Plessy versus Ferguson. Let me see if I can look it up right here. Plessy, I think it was about school or something like that. Was that right? Plessy versus Ferguson. Yes, separate but equal. It was a racial discrimination case. So let's say we want to memorize Plessy versus Ferguson. That's kind of abstract, right? So we have to turn Plessy, Plessy, into a picture. What could be a picture for Plessy? I might see pressing, like you're pressing on something, versus Ferguson. Ferguson. I didn't pick an easy one here, did I? Ferguson. there was a pitcher, a baseball pitcher named Ferguson Jenkins. That's what I would use. That might not be a good pitcher for you, but you might not, because you might not know who that is. But here's the point. You create pitchers for yourself. So to remember Plessy versus Ferguson, I would see Ferguson Jenkins pressing on something. Plessy versus Ferguson. Again, you're going to, though that pitcher may not work for you because you don't know that baseball player. But here's the point. Whatever you want to remember, if it's an abstract concept like the law, turn it into a picture and then attach that picture to your first piece of furniture. Now let's look and see what that court case was about. Separate but equal doctrine. Separate but equal. That's kind of abstract. Well, maybe you imagine you are cutting that piece of furniture down the middle into two separate but equal columns. So that's how I would do it. You got to create pictures for it. How many exercises for the brain? And by the way, guys, it says my computer here, battery is going to die. So I'm going to walk over here and get my cord before it dies on us. There was another question, and it said, what are some memory games? Well, the first thing I would do is just tell you to drink plenty of water, stay healthy. Those are all real important key factors for your memory. But here's something. This is kind of fun. Let's try this. This is what I call brain yoga. And not just me. A lot of people call it brain yoga. Put one thumb up like this and put one thumb out like this. Here's an exercise for your brain. Here's an exercise for your memory. So you got your thumb like that and like this. I want you to try this. Boom. Switch. 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 Look at that. So can you do that? That's brain yoga. And that's supposed to, you put one thumb up like this, one finger out like this, and then you just see if you can go back and forth there. And it's kind of good to exercise your brain. Joan Shakespeare says, would this work for medical terms as well? Yes, this does. This works for medical terms and medical and definitions, SAT vocabulary. Here's the thing I would tell you about vocabulary or SAT or medical terms or something like that. You don't need to use your mind palace. In other words, you don't need to attach the medical terminology to the pieces of furniture. I'm attaching my battery here. I apologize. I didn't realize this was going to happen before we need to hurry up and do this so we don't lose our connection here. This is a brand new computer here. I just got the new MacBook Pro. What side is it on? If you're wanting to memorize medical terminology, you do not need to attach it. Okay, we're good. We're golden. Okay, if you want to memorize medical terms or SAT vocabulary, you don't need to attach it to your mind palace. Here's what I mean. Let's take the word, and this isn't a medical term. It's just a vocabulary word, but it's the same concept. Let's take the word neophyte. 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 This is a vocabulary word, an SAT vocabulary word. We don't need to attach it to a piece of furniture. Instead, what we do is we take the word and we break it down into a picture. Neophyte. I imagine myself on my knees and I'm fighting. I'm going to get on my knees here. I'm on my knees and I'm fighting. It's a knee fight. So the word is neophyte. We break it down into a picture. The definition means beginner. So you got to turn the definition into a picture now. I think of bees, like bumblebees. Bzzz. I think of bees and they're all drinking gin, like the alcoholic drink gin. So imagine neophyte. I'm on my knees and I'm fighting. Around me are a bunch of bees bzzz, and they're drinking gin. So that's how you memorize vocabulary words. What you have to do is you take the word and create a picture for it, and then the definition and create a picture for it, and tie them together. You do not need to attach it to a piece of furniture. Why? Because the bees the neophyte image, that is kind of your file. You don't need to attach it to another. You can if you want. You're perfectly fine, but I don't think you have to. Andres says, I love your channel. Keep it up. Awesome. H. Diaz says, nice. Sanjay loves my dedication. John Bees, what? Ben Rudin says, what are my images for presidents? Hey, Ben, it's great to see you. I know who you are, man. Hey, thank you so much for watching this, Ben. You are somebody who is a real student of memory. So thank you for being such a great follower of this channel. I'm honored to see you on here. Ben and Will Jones asked, how would I learn words like languages like Chinese? Well, I learned some Thai just last week, the Thai language. So I'll tell you how I did that, but I'm going to answer Ben's question first. So Ben's asking, what are my images for presidents 26 to 45? The 26th president is Roosevelt. So I use roses. 27 is Taft. So I use a raft. 28 is Wilson. So I use a Wilson volleyball or a Wilson tennis ball. 29 is Harding, so I use a hard surface, you know, something like concrete, wood, or steel. Coolidge is number 30, so I use a cooler, like you put your drinks in a cooler. 31, and I'm just going off the top of my memory here, so you caught me off guard. 31 is Hoover, so I use a Hoover vacuum cleaner. 32 is Roosevelt, again, the next Roosevelt, FDR, so I use roses. 33 is Truman. I use a lie detector, a true man, someone telling the truth, Truman. 34 is Eisenhower. I use an eyeball. 35 is John F. Kennedy. I use a Ken doll, Barbie and Ken. 36 is LBJ. I live in Dallas, and there's a freeway called LBJ, so I just think of that. But in my seminars, I tell people to think of maybe Johnny Appleseed for Johnson. If they don't know who that is, I tell them to think of an airplane landing, Landing Johnson, Landon for Lyndon. Use whatever you want for that. 37, Nixon, I use Mixon. 38, Ford, I use a Ford pickup truck. 39, Carter. I use Peanuts because his family was in the peanut business, peanut farmers. 40 was Reagan. I use a ray gun, like a Star Wars ray gun. Sometimes I use jelly beans because that was his favorite food. Bush, who just died, may he rest in peace. Bush, I use shrubs or bushes. 42. Clinton, I use lint, like belly button lint, Clinton. 43, I use bushes again. 44, I use a rock that's cold. Brr, it's a burr rock. And 45, a trumpet, like you play the trumpet for Trump. So Ben, that's how I would answer that. Well, and I'm going to go back to the how do I learn a language, but I'm going to answer Kevin's question real quick. What are the best casual memory techniques for someone who is looking to improve their memory but not compete? Man, I'll tell you this: it's the exact same. The same techniques that people use in memory competitions are the exact same techniques that the casual person should use. I do seminars all over the world, and I teach people how to improve their memory. I would say only out of the thousands and thousands of people I've taught, only a few people have ever gone on to compete in memory tournaments. But the same techniques that I use to break the record for the fastest to memorize a deck of cards are the same techniques I teach for students and business people. It's mastering the mind palace. It's learning to think in pictures. It's the same techniques. Man, you are awesome. I still got to go back and answer how do I do languages. Somebody's asking about, do I have any books? I would say that I would say that I don't really have a book that I would recommend, but I do have a memory course. If you go to blackbeltmemory.com, blackbeltmemory.com. Why do I call my course Black Belt Memory? It's when you take martial arts, you start out as a white belt, and then you get your yellow belt, and then your orange belt, and then when you're the best in the martial arts, you're a black belt. That's the premise of Black Belt Memory. You can find it at blackbeltmemory.com. which areas do you think memory techniques are strongest and the weakest? Let me go back to the languages one real quick, because that question was asked a minute ago and I haven't got to that yet. How do you do languages? Well, first of all, I'll tell you this. The best way to learn a language is not to memorize it. All right. It's not. The best way to memorize a language, to learn a language, is to immersion, to go live in that country or talk to somebody in that country. With that said, if you can learn 100 or 200 common words in a language and memorize those, then you're going to be really able to accelerate your learning, your knowledge of that language. I was in Thailand 2 weeks ago, and I wanted to learn how to speak Thai. And I thought a great place to start was just learning how to count in Thai. So you count in Thai this way: Nong, Song, Sam, Si, Ha, Ho, Jed, Pad, Cow, Sip, Ed. And Ed is 11. So how did I memorize that? Well, I just turned the words for the numbers into pictures and I attached them to my files. The first word in Thai is Nung. So I imagined a nun, like a religious Catholic nun, and I imagined a nun on my first piece of furniture. The next one was Song. So I imagined songs, music coming out of my next piece of furniture. The next one was Sam. So I imagined Uncle Sam on my next piece of furniture. The next one was C. So I imagined a pair of glasses on my next piece of furniture. Number 5 is Ha. So I imagined somebody laughing, ha, 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 on my next piece of furniture. I'm getting ready to come out with a video this week on how I learned the Thai. So watch for that. I'll release that the next couple of days. But here's the bottom line. I turned the Thai word into picture, and then I attached it to its definition. In this case, the definition for Ha is 5, so I attached it to my number 5 file because it means 5. So if you want to learn how to count and learn words in another language, I would turn the word into a picture. For example, in Spanish, mesa is table. So I would turn mesa into a picture, and I might see a mess. Like you got a bunch of paper and it's a mess. Well, what does it mean? It means table. So here's a table right here. I would attach it to the table. I would see a mess on the table. So to memorize a language, turn the word into a picture and then attach it to what it means. That's my answer for that. Imagination, all right, but how do you remember the sequence? For some reason, Sanjay's questions keep standing out to me. I'm trying to get to them all, but his are standing out. Anthony, nice to see you too. HDS, thank you for commenting. Okay, so Iceberg asks, I'm learning dates for my history class. I use the number sound system, the major system. If you don't know what the major system is, every digit 0 to 9 is assigned a sound. 0 is S or Z, the S sound. 1 is T or ta. 2 is na. 3 is ma. 4 is ra. 5 is la. 6 is ja. 7 is ka. 8 is fa. 9 is ba. And 10 is sa. Or 10 is 0 is sa. So he's trying to remember dates for history class. You know what? If you are good with the major system and turning numbers into a picture, yes, I say that is a good way. Especially if you're wanting to remember years. But if you just want to remember, and for history class, you probably are going to need to remember years. So that's a good way. For those that don't know that method, this is how I would remember dates. You need 2 things. You need a picture for the month, if you need to remember the month. Here are my pictures for every month of the year. January for me is a baby because it's a new year, a new baby. February for me is a heart for Valentine's Day. March is soldiers marching. April is a pill, like a pill you take. May, I use rain because where I live, it rains a lot in May. June, there's a bug and it's called a June bug. So I use a June bug for June. July, I live in the United States. We have a holiday, the 4th of July, where we set off fireworks. So I use fireworks for July. If that doesn't work for you, use something else. August, I use a gust of wind for August. September, I use a schoolhouse because school starts in September where I live. October, I use a pumpkin because we have Halloween in October and people get pumpkins. November, I use Thanksgiving. It's a holiday here in the United States. And I know this is a very international channel, but I use a Thanksgiving turkey for November. And December, I use a Christmas tree. So if you have to remember a date, let's take December 7th, which is coming up, and it's a historical date. It's Pearl Harbor Day. This is how I would memorize that. December, I would use a Christmas tree. And then 7, I would have a picture for the number 7. My picture for 7 is dice. So opposite sides of dice always equal 7. If there's a 1 on top, there's a 6 on bottom. Opposite sides of dice always add up to 7. By the way, if you're enjoying this, please give me a thumbs up. We've already got 29 thumbs up, and I'd appreciate more. Opposite sides of dice always add up to 7. So this is what I would, how my picture for December 7th. I would imagine a Christmas tree with, thank you, boo, we already got 8 more likes. Whoa, look at that, 12 more likes. You guys rock. Oh, there we go. So December 7th, a Christmas tree with dice all over it. That tells me December 7th. So I would attach that to that piece of furniture. Well, what does it mean? It's Pearl Harbor Day. So I would see the Pearl Harbor battle, or I would see a bunch of pearls, you know, the pearls that you have in oysters. I would see pearls on top of that. So that's how I would remember historical dates. Let's see. What about stress? What's the art ask? What about stress? As far as stress goes, arcs, I would just say as far as stress goes, the better you can be prepared, the less stressed you're going to be. So just prepare well, man. Just use your mind palace, use your memory palace. The better prepared you are, the less stressed you're going to be. And if you find yourself really stressed, go for a walk, do some push-ups, get exercised. There's nothing better to relieve stress than exercise. Find an exercise that you like to do that's fun. I like jujitsu. You know, it's wrestling kind of. I like jujitsu, and I do it for exercise, but it's an exercise that I enjoy, so I want to go do it. So find an exercise that you enjoy. It'll really help manage your stress. Number 2, be well prepared. Being well prepared will help you manage your stress. Really good. Send me a hi. My name is Benjamin Ramirez. You are the best. Benjamin Ramirez, you rock. Thank you. Thank you for all the nice comments. Finlani, is it right that smell helps you to memorize something? Smell is a sense that will help you remember something. So if you have something that when you see these pictures in your mind, for example, when you see Pearl Harbor over here for December 7th on this piece of furniture, if you can imagine you are smelling the ocean, because there was ocean water at Pearl Harbor, if you can imagine you are smelling the ocean or involve smell in the memory, it's going to make it stronger. So smell really does help you remember something. Texas James, you've developed a desire for photographic memory. Ron Jones is giving me a thumbs up. Ron Jones is one of my certified trainers. He's a guy who really practiced his memory system more than most people. I saw him on Saturday, and he memorized everybody's name in the room. He's a true student of memory. Ron Jones rocks. Ark's Nest, thanks for the tips. My vision. Juju Bear says, my visualization skills are not very good. Any good exercises for improvement on visualization? Watch cartoons. Go watch. I got an iced tea right here. I got to get a drink. Watch cartoons. Maybe the old cartoons from 30 years ago when you got the Road Runner and and Bugs Bunny and those cartoons with all that just good imagination. Maybe read comic books. That might help your imagination. So read comic books, watch cartoons. But here's another thing you can do to improve your imagination. Don't tell yourself that you have a bad imagination. Just here, a reason that some people think they have a bad imagination is they doubt themselves or they question themselves. Here's a good exercise in creativity. Pick a word, any word, and write it on a sheet of paper. And then write down as many words as you can think of that are triggered by that word. So, for example, you write down the word book, and just for 5 minutes, write down as many things as you can think about book. And you might write down pages, ink, writing, library, school, homework. And just keep going and going and going. And maybe you'll write down something like Moby Dick, because that's a book. And then that leads you to think of a whale and a boat and a fisherman. And you can write down those too, even though they had nothing to do with book. It's just kind of one thought that led to another thought. That's kind of a brainstorming technique. And as long as you can give your brain permission not to be critical of your answers and just write down everything that comes to mind. So, number one, watch cartoons, read comic books. Number two, relax. Number three, just do that little exercise there and give your brain permission to just write and not worry about if it's right or if it's wrong or if it's silly or if it's stupid. Okay. How would Joan Shakespeare, I keep answering your questions, Joan. I don't know why. Joan asked the question, how would you do a word like lacuna or episiphyal artery? Lacuna, I think of Laguna Beach in California. If that doesn't make sense to you, if you don't have a picture, if that doesn't work for you, lacuna, I might think of a coonskin cap. Daniel Boone had a coonskin cap. Epiphyseal artery, epiphyseal. I might think of an EpiPen. You know, an EpiPen is the type of a shot. And artery, I think of art, like the Mona Lisa. So I got an EpiPen in the Mona Lisa. Let's see. RV says, do sweating activities help improving the memory, like running? Yes. There are studies that show. By the way, thank you for all the thumbs up. You guys are awesome. There are studies that show that exercise will help your memory. And here's why. The more oxygen that gets to your brain, the more alert your brain is going to be. So one of the ways to make sure you're getting a lot of oxygen to your brain is to be physically fit. If you have good cardiovascular, your better blood flow is going to be better, more oxygen to your brain. So exercise will help your memory because it helps your cardiovascular. That's number one. Number two, it wakes you up. If you go out and you go for a run, it's going to wake you up. And just being woken up is going to help your memory. And number three, the third way exercise will help your memory is your brain. Now, a lot of you are so young, this is not going to impact you. But once you start getting older, like me, I'm a little bit older. Once you start getting older, your brain actually starts to shrink, specifically your hippocampus. Well, your hippocampus is responsible for long-term memory. If you can exercise, one of the few things that has been shown to reverse the shrinkage of your hippocampus is exercise. Get out there and exercise, guys. It works. Hi, Ron. Do supplements like phosphatidylglycerine and thiamine help your memory, or am I just wasting your money? And that comes from Simon Oil Torres. I don't think you're wasting your money. I do think there is some validity to brain foods and nootropics, as they're called. I do think good nutrition and exercise can account for a lot of that. Some of my brain foods that are natural are spinach and blueberries, omega-3s. So you eat a lot of fish. They tell us that the Mediterranean diet, which is a lot of fish and nuts, walnuts. If you want to save money, just make sure you're drinking plenty of water. 8 glasses of water a day. Blueberries, spinach, a lot of fish, omega-3 pills, which are a cheaper supplement for your brain. I think the nootropics probably do have some value. Is it measurable? I don't know. And that's the honest truth. I don't know. But you might be able to get the same benefit from just foods, healthy brain foods. Somebody says, Anthony says he swims for 30 to 50 minutes. Fantastic. Jason Statham says, how many foreign words could you remember at once? I guess y'all have to comment on that. Everybody's probably a little bit different. For me, it just depends on how many files I have numbered, how many pieces of furniture. And I have 2,500, 2,500 pieces of furniture in my memory palace. So I could memorize 2,500 words. It would take a while. And here's why it would take a while. You may be able to say, well, you could look at a list of 2,500 words and just memorize them. True and not true. Because what I would probably do is memorize the first 100 and then go back and review. Memorize the next 100. So now I got 200 memorized, and then I'd have to review again. Then I'd memorize another 100. So I now got 300, and then I'd have to go back and review. So there's a lot of review time in there when you start memorizing massive amounts of information. And that's something that has to be calculated. You can't just memorize it straight through, because once you get to word 2,000, if you haven't reviewed up to word 2,000, you're not really going to remember. There's going to be a lot of memory loss in there. So if you're memorizing massive amounts of data, you do have to take time to go back and review. Review is one of the things that cements information into your long-term memory. Sean G says, everyone is different. That is so true. Balerjan Matvejev, how do you remember mathematical formulas? Well, this is how I would memorize mathematical formulas. Let's take the volume formula for a sphere. And by the way, I'm just answering these questions as y'all pop them up right here. So I'm really having to go off the top of my head. So I'm going to use information that I'm familiar with. And here's a formula that I'm familiar with. It's the volume formula for a sphere. The volume formula for a sphere. Sphere equals 4/3 pi r cubed. How do you remember that? Well, to remember a math formula, this is what you got to do. You got to look at the formula and create pictures for all the variables. A variable is a letter in a math formula that's going to represent a number. For example, 4/3 pi r cubed. The variable there is r. In this case, it means radius, but we're going to need to create a picture for r. Every time I see a r in a math formula, I think of a rat. Every time I see a pi, which is the symbol for 3.14, I think of a pie, like a piece of pie you eat. So let's take the volume formula, 4/3 pi r cubed. Here, let's do this. Oh boy, I almost destroyed it. I almost destroyed our camera. Imagine there's a sphere right here. We've got a sphere. And then, let's imagine it's a globe, the globe of the earth, because the earth is a globe. The earth is a sphere. We got a sphere. Now imagine that globe. Here's the equator across the middle. We got 4 continents on top, and we got 3 on bottom. On top of the globe is a piece of pie, but next to that pie is a rat, and he is frozen. He's an ice cube because he's at the North Pole. Let's go through that again. We have a sphere. There's 4 continents on top, 3 on bottom. There's a piece of pie right here, and next to the pie is a rat, and the rat is cold. He's cubed because he's at the North Pole. Sphere equals 4/3 pi r cubed. And when I do this, I just mean cold, frozen. So to remember a math formula, the first thing that you have to do is go through the math formula and pick out variables and create or look at the variables and pick out pictures for the variables. So every time you see an R, decide what's it going to be. For me, it's a rat. Every time you see a P, which stands for perimeter, I see a pirate. I imagine a pirate with an eye patch. Arr. Every time I see W in an algebra or geometry formula, which stands for width, I see a window, like a window you look out of. So let's take another math formula. This is the area formula for a circular ring. Imagine this picture. Imagine we've got a window right here, and in the window pops a pirate. And on his finger, he's got a ring from somebody he just killed. You throw 2 pies in his face. Let's go through that again. We have a window. In the window is a pirate. He has a ring on his finger from somebody he just killed. You throw 2 pies in his face. One more time. Right here we have a window. In the window is a pirate. On his finger is a ring from somebody he just killed. You throw 2 pies in his face. We took a math formula and we turned it into a picture. The area formula for a circular ring is 2 pi. What was in the window? A pirate. P, and where was he at? W, a window. The area formula for a pirate circular ring is 2 pi, P for pirate, and W for window. To remember, by the way, if you're liking this, guys, I do appreciate all the thumbs up. We've been going 45 minutes here. I'm trying to answer your questions. I do appreciate the thumbs up. Fury asked, do we reuse the memory palace? Yes, you do. I answered that question earlier in the video. If you want to go back and listen to that, you can. Well, which formula is this again? The 2 formulas I just used were a volume formula for a sphere, 4/3 pi r cubed, and the area formula for a circular ring, 2 pi pw. William Brown asks, do you have any advice for improving original awareness in order to remember conversations? What type of exercises do you recommend to speed your recall ability? So there's 2, William, there's 2 questions there. Do I have any advice for improving awareness in order to remember conversations? William, let me ask, let's just talk about names and faces first of all. William, how many times has it happened to you? You're introduced to somebody and you shake their hand, and 2 seconds later, you don't remember what they said their name was. It's because you're not paying attention. You're not focused. So if you want to remember conversations, the first tip I can give you is just be focused, be listening. Shut off everything else that's going in your brain. Sometimes when we're talking to somebody, we're thinking, what do they think of me? What do I think of them? Have I seen them before? What are we going to talk about? What business deals are we going to talk about? Oh, I got to go to the store after I leave here. And we're thinking about all these other things except what that person is talking about. And that's really your first problem. So I would just tell yourself, focus on this person. Focus on what their name is. Focus on what they say. And if they say something that's really important, turn it into a picture and maybe see that picture dancing around the room, or better yet, and I shouldn't even have said that, attach that picture to your mind palace so you can remember it later. What exercises do I recommend for speed? Practice. I hate to say that, but practice. Why does practice improve your speed with memory? Here's why. To remember something, thanks for the thumbs up, guys. I really appreciate all the thumbs up. We're getting a lot right now. I really appreciate that. Why does speed improve your memory? Or why does practice improve the speed of your memory? Here's why. Speed can dramatically improve with practice. Why? Because to remember something, you need a picture for it, right? Well, let's say that you need to come up with a picture for the number 21. The first time you need to come up with a picture for 21, you're like, what could I use for 21? What could I use for 21? Oh, I'll use a deck of cards for the number 21 because of the game blackjack. Well, guess what? Next time you need a picture for number 21. You don't have to go through that process of what's a picture for the number 21. You just think blackjack. Speed is improved through practice in memory because you have a bigger database of images for numbers or words or whatever. You meet a woman, her name is Lisa. You want to remember that. So you take a few minutes and you're like, what's a picture for Lisa? Oh, the Mona Lisa. Well, guess what? Next time you meet a Lisa, you use the Mona Lisa. And this goes for anything. Chemistry. You want to come up with a picture for neon and you decide it's going to be a neon sign. Well, next time you want to remember the word neon, you already have a picture for it. So once you come up with a picture for something, you just continue to use that picture over and over again for that word. That's why in memory, practice really improves your speed a lot. Matthew asked, do I believe that a photographic memory exists in the world? Scientists will tell us that when we hear the term photographic memory, it's really not a thing. It really doesn't exist. There are people with really good memories, with really naturally good memories, but the true photographic memory where you can walk into a room, take a picture of it with your mind, and then remember it perfectly just doesn't exist. And if it does, it's extremely rare, extremely rare. Anybody who says they have a photographic memory, they probably just mean they have a really good memory. And anybody who says that they want to have a photographic memory, what they probably mean is they just want to have a better memory. Let's see. Hey, William, I'm glad you found the channel as well. There's so many questions here. Do you have looks like a lot of the questions are similar. I did answer the math formula question. Tips on great brain food. I think I gave that already. Spinach, blueberries, omega-3s. Andreas, thanks for asking the question. Do I think sweet? Here's a good question. Jock asks, do I think sweets help you concentrate? Okay, great question. Do I think that sweets help you concentrate? In the short term, immediately, it might wake you up a little bit because of the caffeine, and it might give you a sugar rush because of the caffeine. So in the short term, it might give you a memory boost. But if you do that, you're going to have that sugar crash and you're going to go downhill. And then it's going to hurt your ability to focus and concentrate. And I would also say this, if you continue to use sweets a lot, that rush of energy and focus you're going to get is not going to be as dramatic the next time. And sweets over a long period of time are negative effects on your memory. Excessive salt, excessive sugar, excessive alcohol, all in excess end up hurting your memory. So yes, drinking a caffeinated Coca-Cola or Pepsi in the short term might give you a boost, but remember, you're going to crash after that, and that's actually going to hurt your memory. So great questions here. Please, I like that thumb exercise. Could you show me one more time, Sinandrella Hassan? Here's the thumb exercise. Put one thumb like this, one finger like this, and switch, 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 switch. That will just kind of wake up your brain or whatever. What do you think? Ben asked, what do you think about eating certain things while studying, then the same things during the test? Ben, okay, here's an interesting story. Whenever I was in 6th grade, I was studying for a test for my science class, and I was eating cinnamon rolls when I studied. And I told myself, whenever I take the test, I want to remember what the cinnamon roll tastes like because it's going to help me remember what I'm studying. Believe it or not, I was taking that test in 6th grade, and I couldn't think of an answer. And I mentally imagined the taste of the cinnamon rolls, and it kind of helped me. So I don't know if I would rely on that as my primary method, but I do think that there's some truth to that, Ben. Magnus asks, in what areas do you find memory techniques to be the strongest where it can really help people in their daily life? The areas that I think memory techniques are really good for is names and faces, number one. And remember a name and face. You create an image for the name. Lisa could be the Mona Lisa. Brian could be a brain. Steve could be a stove. Create a picture for the name and attach that image to the person. See that image on that person's face. I think there's a great application for students with memory techniques, remembering what they need to learn from books. Remember, it all boils down to the mind palace or the memory palace. And the mind palace is where you have pieces of furniture numbered in a house and you're underlining or memorize what you want to remember and then attaching it to your mind palace. I'm a speaker. I give speeches for a living. I use the memory palace or the mind palace to memorize my speech, to give speeches and presentations without notes. So I think that's a great application. You could do it for something as simple as remembering your things to-do list for the day. Whatever you want to remember, take it, imagine it as a picture, put it on your number one piece of furniture, number two on the next, number three on the next. So I think those are Jack asks, so, well, Magnus, let me go back to your question. Remembering names and faces is memory training is great for that. Giving speeches without notes, remembering what you read, remembering poems or quotes, helping students improve their grades, helping business people learn a new job or a task. Andreas Erickson asked, what's the first thing I ever used a memory palace for? Well, I took my first memory seminar in August of 1991. I was 18 years old, 27 years ago. And the first thing that I used my memory palace for was in that workshop. And it was just examples of stuff that the teacher was giving us in the workshop. And I used them, to memorize that day in the workshop. What was the first thing I memorized on my own, though? Back in 1991, 27 years ago, I was interested in memorizing Bible verses. So I know I memorized Bible verses with it. I was interested in presidential history. So I used it to memorize the presidents. And I used it to memorize a poem and a quote. There's a poem called A Man in the Glass. Man in the Glass. And the poem goes like this. And again, this is all off the top of my head. I'm just answering the questions as they come. Inzelli, you're the best. No, you are the best. Will, I did talk about nootropics. I will talk about them. I'm going to say this poem. I'm going to say this point. And Kelsey, I'll answer your question about ketosis real quick too. Here's the poem that I learned 27 years ago using my mental file folders. It's my memory palace. It's a poem called A Man in the Glass. And the poem says this: when you get what you want, by the way, if you like this poem as I say it, give me a thumbs up. When you get what you want in your struggle for self and the world makes you king for a day, just go to a mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it is not your father, your mother, or your wife whose judgment upon you must pass, but the fellow's verdict who counts most in your life is the man looking back from the glass. Some people may say you're a square-shooting chum and call you a wonderful guy, but the man in the glass says you're only a bum if you can't look him straight in the eye. He's the one to please, never mind the rest, for he's with you clear up till the end. And you'll pass your most dangerous and difficult test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on your back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass. That is a poem I memorized 27 years ago. One of the first things I ever memorized with the Mind Palace. So let's go back to Will's question of nootropics. Will, I answered this a little bit earlier in the video, so if you wanted to go back and watch that, you could. But real quickly, I do think there is some value to nootropics, yes. But I'll also say this: good nutrition and exercise might give you the same benefits of nootropics naturally. I do think it probably gives you a little bit extra of a boost. And at times I will encounter nootropics that I think are really beneficial. And when I do, I'll let you know about them. But right now, if you just want to focus on your food and your diet and staying healthy, that might be what you need. Kelsey Nixon asked, have you heard of the ketosis and how it helps for mental clarity? And ketosis, and I'm wanting to let me just specifically speak about intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting will help you for your mental clarity. And here is what intermittent fasting is. Intermittent fasting is where you get all your eating in a small window of every day. I try to eat between 11 a.m. and 5 or 6 p.m. And I try to put all my meals in that window. And that helps with my mental clarity. Eating too much can affect your mental clarity. When you are intermittent fasting, it forces your body to burn the fat in your body, and that is going to produce chemicals that are going to help you with your mental clarity. I do believe that ketosis helps from mental clarity, and I think the keto lifestyle helps with mental clarity, and specifically the intermittent fasting is something I believe in. Studies show the less you eat, the longer you're going to live. The less you eat, the longer you're going to live. Isn't that crazy? But it's true. Now, within reason, if you don't eat anything, you're going to die. But the people who eat less live longer, and eating less also helps your mental clarity. Overeating gives you brain fog. Also, pay attention to what food. Everybody's different, but I've noticed whenever I eat a lot of sugar, I have a foggy brain. I've also noticed artificial sweeteners really give me a foggy brain. So notice how your own body is, and notice what foods give you a foggy brain, and keep note of it. You know what? I have a really clear brain today. What foods did I eat? Or I have a really foggy head today. What foods did I eat? Ask yourself those questions. Ron Jones, thanks for all the thumbs up. Kelsey, thanks for all the thumbs up. Let's see some tips who want to learn. Okay, so Techno Linux asked, the Mind Palace, can anything be used for the Mind Palace or just a house with furniture? Great question. If you're enjoying this video, please give me a thumbs up. We've been going for 1 hour here now. If I had known it was going to be an hour, I would have gotten some sleep. You guys are awesome. I'm going to do this more often. Do y'all want me to do this more often? Just answer your questions. Hey, Fernando, hi from Texas. I would love to go to Scotland. If you know any companies that want to hire a memory expert, let me know. Here's the question. Can anything, all right, Jimmy Kimmel live. Heck yeah. Joan, yes. Jack, please do this more often. Will Jones, yes. Ben Rudin, thumbs up. Tingler, yes. Valerijan, yes. Andreas, yes. Jennifer, yes. Okay, I'll do this more often. I can't say what I'll do it. Maybe we'll do it on Mondays. Who knows? This is an idea. Maybe not Mondays. Because I got something special coming out on Mondays. I got something really special coming in 2019. Every Monday, I'm going to release I'll tell you right now, because y'all are being so cool on here with me. I'm going to do a book club. I'm going to start a book club in 2019. And here's what it's going to be. I'm going to speed read a book in a day and then memorize what I learned and tell you what I learned and put that video out every Monday. And then I'm going to give you a link where you can go download the book for free. So there's no money involved in this book club. It's totally free. Every Monday, we're going to do a different book. So just stay tuned for that. So we're going to do that on every Monday. Maybe I'll start doing this on a different day of the week. We'll figure it out. Let's go back to the Mind Palace question. Can you use anything for a Mind Palace, or does it have to be a house? It can be any location. So let me give you some examples of what I use for my Mind Palace. I use my house here. This is my home. This is a Mind Palace. But I also use a bookstore. I use a Barnes & Noble's bookstore. I use a restaurant. I use a hotel. I've gone for walks outside and down through the walk. I live in downtown Fort Worth. I don't know if you can. Here's my window. This is what I'm looking at right here. So there's my window right there. I actually go for I will go for a walk around downtown, and I've probably got 500 spots numbered downtown. And this is what I did. I numbered 40 spots in my condo right here. I go downstairs and picnic tables. I got all that numbered. So a Mind Palace doesn't just have to be a piece of furniture in a house. I'm a big baseball fan. I've got seasons tickets to the Texas Rangers, and I have memorized locations inside the Texas Rangers Stadium, the ballpark in Arlington. So a Mind Palace can be any location. It can be a park. And here's something I'll say about this as well. It doesn't even have to be a real location. I know people, and I'm gonna preface something. I have never done this. I don't do this, but I have known some really smart people who do this, and it works for them. They have used movies as a Mind Palace. What do I mean? The first scene in a movie is their first location. The next scene in a movie is their next location. The next scene in a movie is their next location. And whatever they want to memorize, they attach it to that movie. I don't do that. That sounds complicated to me, but some people do it. Some people know video games so well. They use a Mind Palace inside of a video game because they know where everything is in the video game. So it doesn't even have to be a real location. Now, I only use real locations personally. That's all I use because it's easier for me. But I'm just answering the question. No, a Mind Palace doesn't have to be just your home. Please change the background. Well, this is my house, and this is the best angle right now. What do you want me to do? You want me to move? I'll work on it. I'll get something and I'll set it up over here. Yeah, Jack says the movie method works. Where am I from? I'm from Texas. I'm from the United States. Kelsey gives me a laughing there. Do I have Ben Rudin asked me, do I have a method for note taking? For note taking, I just try to, there's really two methods that I think are popular. I'll tell you the first method, and I don't use it that much, but it's the mind map. Tony Buzan has a technique called the mind map where he will write the main idea in the center of the page and then all the thoughts that come off of that as kind of like lines out from the main idea. I don't do that. My notes tend to be more look like an outline. I'll have a main idea and then the sub points under it, and then the next main idea and then the next sub points under it. I guess I would recommend don't write down every word, just the main ideas. Here's one thing I will say about note taking. I have found that I take better notes when I'm writing them out by hand versus typing on a computer. Because when I'm writing them out by hand, I'm forced to just use the main idea, just use keywords. Sometimes when I'm typing them out on a computer, I start wanting to type out every single word and going into too much detail and write out sentences. So I actually like writing my notes out by hand. And I think that maybe strengthens it in my memory because I'm involving my hand. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know it's true that I take better notes by hand because the computer, I tend to type too much. But do whatever works for you. Do whatever works for you. What is this? Philly asks, what is this? My name's Ron White. I am a two-time USA memory champion. I used to hold the record for the fastest to memorize a deck of cards in the United States. You might have seen me on the National Geographic show Brain Games, the History Channel show Stanley's Superhumans. I give people tips on how to improve their memory, how to memorize more, and that's what this is. So, good to see you here. Glad you're here. If you don't know what this is, I hope you watch more and I hope you subscribe, but I don't know how you would not be seeing this if you're not subscribed. Maybe you are. I don't know. Let's see. Chris Adams. Hey, you were perfect. Any tip for memorizing information for medical school? Man, I hate to keep going back to this, but build a Mind Palace that's at least 100 pieces of furniture and then practice using that for your school information. Jimmy Kimmel asked, do you count cards? I do not. Counting cards is math. It's not memory. So Every card, when you're counting cards, either has a -1, a 0, or a +1 assigned to it. Whenever that card gets played, you either subtract 1, you do nothing, 0, or you add 1. And then when the count gets to be a certain number, the odds are in your favor. It's a mathematical game, not a memory game, and I just don't do it. Not because there's no value to it or it's not fun. I'm just not interested in it, but maybe one day. Hey, John, how do you remember magic tricks? You know what? That's something I'm going to have to research. So my gut feeling is practice, just practice. I think magic tricks take a lot of practice because a lot of it involves sleight of hand. You know what I'm saying? And so you have to really get that down really well. I had a magician tell me once that he would practice in front of the mirror because if he could practice in front of the mirror and fool himself, he knew he was really good. So if you're a magician, maybe practice in front of the mirror and see if you can fool yourself. Question asks, hey, nice beard. Thank you. My beard used to be a lot more red and brown. I do not know how it got to be this gray-white color here, but it's happened very fast. Ask a question, Philly. Ask a question. You don't have to ask permission. Let's see. Let's go back up here to, is it better to listen to music while studying? Do you have any general tips for motivation? So I do have a theory. Is it better to listen to music while you're studying? And sometimes I do listen to music while studying. And here's why. What's one of the hardest things to do when you're studying? It's to focus. It's to keep your concentration. All these things will jump into your head and you'll get distracted. You'll start thinking about that. I think classical music for me, Beethoven, Mozart, that kind of stuff is great for studying. Why classical music? Because there's no lyrics. And because there is no lyrics, your brain's not going to start singing along with the song. Instead, your brain can focus 100% on what you are studying. But because there's music in the background, I think it keeps your brain from wandering. I think it keeps your mind from wandering. If there's no music and there's total silence, I think your brain can wander a little bit. I also think this is why maybe some people study better at like Starbucks or something like that, or a library with people moving around, because there's a little bit of stuff going on in the background and that kind of occupies your brain a little bit and you can actually focus. Now, I think there is a point where that's not true. If there's too much going on around you, it's going to be distracting. So if you are going to listen to music while studying, try classical music. I think that's going to help you the best. And do you have any general tips for motivation? If you're getting value from this, give me a thumbs up. My general tips for motivation is something called the Pomodoro technique. The Pomodoro technique. And that's basically where you break your studying down into chunks. Oh, by the way, I have a video in my YouTube called Study With Me. Study With Me. Next time you're studying for a test and you don't want to study alone, go to YouTube, type in Study With Me, Ron White. My video will pop up, and I'm sitting there studying, and you can study with me. It's like having a partner. Now, back to my motivation for studying. I use the Pomodoro technique, and here's the technique. Get yourself a timer. Could be your cell phone. It doesn't matter. Set it for 25 minutes, and then study. When the timer goes off, take a 3 or 4 minute break. Get up, walk around, get a drink of water, do something to get your blood flowing, do some jumping jacks, go do push-ups, or just go outside and walk around for 3 or 4 minutes. Come back in, set the timer for 25 minutes, do it again. Take a 3 to 4 minute break, and then once you've done 4 of those, take a 15, 20-minute break, maybe a 30-minute break. But for studying, the best thing you can do is for motivation is to break it up into chunks. And just tell yourself, hey, I'm just going to study for 25 minutes. Because if you tell yourself, oh, I got to study for 5 hours, it could be overwhelming. And you're just going to get so, overwhelmed. Break it down into chunks, Pomodoro techniques. Hey, from India. Great to hear from you. Study with me with the alien. That's right, Jimmy Kimmel Live. Can you spell Pomodoro? I'm not a great speller. I believe it is. I mean, I'm gonna look it up for you here. I believe it's Pomodoro. So it's all O's. Pomodoro. I have a YouTube video, how to deal with procrastination, and I believe I talk about it. It's in a video I just released in the last week or two. Let's see. How Simon asks, how do you improve images for coding the thing you're trying to remember and remember text? My imagination sometimes struggles. Well, if you want to turn words into a picture, there's really two primary ways that you're going to do this. The first primary way is break the word down by syllable. For example, the word we used earlier, neophyte. Well, you imagine yourself on your knees and you're fighting. It's a knee fight, neophyte. So the first way to turn a word into a picture is to break it down by syllables. The second word is to use the substitution method. And here's what the substitution method is. Take a word like freedom. Substitute, what does freedom mean to you? Maybe it means an eagle that's soaring. He has freedom. So your image for freedom would become an eagle. You're not breaking the word freedom down by syllable, but you're using a substitute image. In other words, create your images by breaking the word down by syllable or by using the substitution method. Julio, he's asked, do I do nootropics? I've answered that question a couple times here in this video. Best thing I like to do is good nutrition and exercise. And I have some videos on my top brain foods. You can search that because I've already listed them. Spinach, blueberries, omega-3, drinking plenty of water, avoiding excessive alcohol, that kind of stuff. Mohammed from Pakistan, hey, how are you doing? Do I have a method, Kelsey asked, to remember your dreams better? Here's a couple ideas or a couple suggestions on remembering your dreams. By the way, guys, I'm going to go about 5 more minutes here. I don't know. Maybe I'll go longer. Who knows? How do I remember how do you remember your dreams? Here's an idea. Have a notebook beside your nightstand. And whenever you wake up and you have a dream, immediately write it down in that notebook. Before you write it down, though, here's a good idea. When you wake up, the first thing you do, well, let me go back. I got a couple ideas here on this. To remember your dreams, it's going to be better if you wake up naturally. And what I mean by that is if you wake up with an alarm, you haven't completed the dream or you haven't completed the sleep cycle. So if you wake up by an alarm, you're going to be interrupting the dream. You're going to be interrupting the sleep cycle. It's going to be abrupt. It's going to immediately shift your focus to the alarm, and there's a less chance you're going to remember your dream. So number one, it's better to wake up naturally, and you wake up naturally by getting on a sleep schedule. Now, maybe you want to have a backup alarm in case you don't wake up, but it's better to wake up naturally to remember your dreams. Number two, when you wake up, don't move. Don't do anything. Just wake up and open your eyes. Don't move. Don't get out of bed. Don't do anything. Just lay there and try to remember your dream. Maybe even keep your eyes closed. Try to remember what you dream, but don't move. Don't get out of bed. Don't start moving. Don't look around at anything else. What did you dream? And then, after you have reviewed it, write it down in a notebook. Fall asleep naturally. Try to avoid sleeping pills. Try to avoid excessive alcohol to sleep. But keep a notebook if you wake up in the middle of the night and maybe just write down one key. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh my God, that was a crazy dream. Write down 1 or 2 key words and then go back to sleep. So those are some ideas there on how to remember your dreams. I I hoped Assad says he hopes to see your book and read the video. We're going to do that video book club starting in 2019. You're going to like it. Jimmy Kimmel Live, great info. Thank you very much. How to focus better when studying. I always focus on my feet. If you study better by standing up, by all means, stand up. When I would compete in the USA Memory Championship, they had an event where, by the way, if you like this, give me a thumbs up. They had an event, how many words can you memorize? And when I would do that event, I would always stand up to memorize it. I would act the words out and I would get involved in it. So if standing up helps you to memorize, I've done that. I did that. So, and if acting out the stuff helps you, if you want to imagine if you're throwing stuff at your mind palace and you actually want to use your hands and throw it, I did that. Ben, this question keeps asking, do I take vitamin pills? I do omega-3. Omega-3 is a great vitamin pill for your brain. Robert Smith says, what technique should you start with kids first for kids? Depends on how old the kids are. If I have taught a 6-year-old how to memorize the presidents of the United States, if let's say a kid is 3 years old or 4 years old, what I would teach them how to do is count by numbering pieces of furniture. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then maybe just have them count numbering pieces of furniture. And really what you're teaching them how to do is to memorize their own mind palace. Then I'd say if they get to be 5 or 6 years old, I don't think they're going to be memorizing stuff on their own, but you could give them words and say, hey, imagine this here, imagine this here, imagine this here. And I've helped 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds memorize the presidents of the United States that way. So definitely by age 6 or 7, you can start teaching them the mind palace. I think it's a great place to start. I do have other methods in my black belt memory course. My memory course is blackbeltmemory.com. Muhammad asks, how do you memorize the countries and capitals? How do you memorize this is going to be the last question, guys, but we're going to keep doing this. So if you like this, stay tuned for these. We're going to do a lot more of these. This was an hour and 20 minutes here. So probably be I know you keep asking how do you remember chess positions, Angelo? And I'm going to go back to capitals and countries. But Angelo, that's a question I'm going to have to think about. Okay, that's a question I'm going to have to think about because I don't do it myself. If I had to guess, though, I would say there's a grid, right? And each square is numbered. So I would use each one of those squares as a location in my mind palace. Let's do another video on that. That's a good question. Let's do a video on that. My off the cuff thing though is I would probably create an image for every chess piece. A knight would be a horse. A castle would be a castle. A king would be a king's crown. A queen might be a dress. And then I would have each square numbered, right? And I think there's already a systematic number for the chessboard that I don't know, but there is a grid numbering system. And if I move the knight to that grid number, I would just imagine a knight on that grid number on the first piece of furniture there, or whatever piece of furniture it is. I'll go into more detail. Maybe I'll do a full video on that. Class objective. Can you send me your email? This is how if you want my email address, this is how you get my email address. Go to blackbeltmemory.com, enter your email address in that box, and then you'll get an email from me, and you can just reply to that email. blackbeltmemory.com. How do you memorize the countries and capitals? Let's take the country of Belgium. Think of a bell, like a bell you ring. Bung, 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 bung. Belgium, think of a bell you ring. Now, what's the capital of Belgium? Brussels. So I imagine a bell with Brussels sprouts in it. That's how you memorize countries and capitals. Take the name of the country, turn it into a picture. Take the name of the capital, turn it into a picture, and attach those together in one image. Well, what's my number? I don't give out my phone number, but I give out my email. You can get my email address by going to blackbeltmemory.com, entering your email address. You'll get an email from me, and then just reply back to that. Hey, you're welcome, Muhammad. Muhammad, if you go to my YouTube channel and you search it for how to go into YouTube and type how to memorize countries and capitals, and put my name, Ron White, I have a video with maybe 10 different examples, 10 different countries and capitals. So you guys are all great. We went 90 minutes here. I've never done this before. I just wanted to give it a try, but you guys were so awesome. And I didn't get to everybody's question, and I do apologize. I tried to answer as many as I could as I saw them. If I didn't get to your question this time, please, if you see this again, log on and we'll do this again. My name's Ron White. I'm a two-time USA memory champion. I used to hold the record for the fastest to memorize a deck of cards in the United States. My passion and my career is teaching people how to improve their memory. I really believe I can help you. If you liked this video and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. If you have any questions, comment below. I'll try to answer them, but I'll do another one of these next week. Maybe next week I'll do it on Monday as well. I don't know. I'll try. In January, though, look for the other videos on Mondays, which is going to be the book reviews. It's going to be a book club. It's going to be all about speed reading. And we're going to be doing a lot of stuff in January on speed reading. I have a new program coming out in 2019. It's called sprint reading, like sprint, like a runner, sprint reading. So thank you, Joan. I appreciated it too. Assad, thank you. I will do it again. Majestic Penguin, thank you very much. Trishner, you're great. Kamal, I'm looking forward to it as well. Blackbeltmemory.com. Ron Jones, you're right. Class objective. I'll have class objective. We're going to get to that next time. Vinez, thank you. Tushner, thank you. Andreas, thank you. Good night. Jack Arrow. So that's it, guys. We went, and Angelo, thank you. We went an hour and a half. 54 of you stuck on here with me. We got so many thumbs up. This is great. You guys are great. Have a good night. Here's my hometown. Hey, y'all, you want to see my house a little bit before we go? I'll show you my house if you want to see it a little bit. That's downtown Fort Worth. That's where I live, down there in Fort Worth. Here, I got this woman right here in South Africa. I got this woman in you're probably looking at this. I got her in Budapest, Hungary. This is in Mexico. This is the old Mayan calendar. I got this in Afghanistan. This is an old Soviet military hat. Here's a piece of the Berlin Wall I got in Germany. This is dinosaur poop, coprolite, dinosaur poop. Here is a trilobite. It's a fossil, a trilobite dinosaur fossil. This is I like fossils a lot. This is I don't know how old this is, but there's some dinosaur teeth there. Check out this head. Look at this. Bah! That is not a real skull, by the way. Anyways, guys, I'll introduce you more to my life. By the way, there's a new feature on Facebook called Facebook Stories, and I'm going to start using those. So if you're ever on YouTube on your cell phone, if you go to YouTube on your cell phone and you look at your subscriptions, there's a stories feature. And I have some stories on YouTube right now. So the stories that are like on Instagram and Facebook, YouTube is doing stories now. So thanks, guys. You guys are awesome. I will see you guys Soon. Hey, I'm going to be my next YouTube video. I'm going to release maybe tomorrow or the next day. It's how to count to 99 in the Thai language. How to count to 99 in the Thai language. I'm going to release that video in the next few days. Have a great night, everybody.